This episode is brought to you by Google Gemini. With the Gemini app, you can talk live and have a real-time conversation with an AI assistant. It's great for all kinds of things, like if you want to practice for an upcoming interview, ask for advice on things to do in a new city, or brainstorm creative ideas. And by the way, this script was actually read by Gemini. Download the Gemini app for iOS and Android today. Must be 18 plus to use Gemini Live.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I am your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by the lovely Bree Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year! Woo! We are gearing up here for our annual Mind Body Unicorn Challenge. So in that challenge, it is 31 days of you committing to a mindfulness habit, exercise habit, not toxic exercise. We're not in a toxic diet culture over here. It's just moving your body.
Nope.
And you commit to something called unicorn time, which is something that we talk about in this episode. That Mind Body Unicorn Challenge link is in the show notes, by the way. So come and join us in there. But for this episode, we talked to the amazing Eve Rodsky. And if you don't know her name, she wrote the book Fair Play, has popularized this idea of mental load and sharing the domestic workload in the home. And she's also popularized this idea of unicorn space, which we use all throughout No Guilt Mom. It is that time for fun. And we are going to let Eve tell you all about it. Right, Bree?
Yes. Every time I think about talking with Eve, I think about all the inflatable unicorn costumes we got.
We
to
do.
Help, promote this aspect. Our balance group loves our unicorns.
Mm-hmm. We had one at the retreat. I mean, my inflatable unicorn costume is currently in my closet. I could bring it out at any time. Yeah. We hope you enjoy this interview with Eve. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by my illustrious co-host, Bree Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. How are you?
It's a peekaboo co-host.
I'm delayed trying to think of ways to make visual gags for the people that are watching this on YouTube.
Yeah, if you haven't gone and watched us on YouTube yet, you gotta go because, I mean, we're rocking some great fashion today. Actually, I see the same color. So we do coordinate if we were here, but I'm not going to tell you that color. You have to go see on YouTube what color we're wearing.
Can you guess the color that both Joanne and I are wearing today?
And go subscribe to the No Guilt Mom YouTube channel while you're there.
Yes.
But we have a fantastic episode for you. We have, oh my gosh, we didn't even call her the two-timer. She's a two-timer now.
Oh, we forgot to call her a two-timer. Oh, man, she would have loved that too, I think.
She would have loved it. It's the biggest compliment we can give you here at No Guilt Mom because it means you're a second-time guest. You're on again. We loved you so much. You're like one of our homies now.
Yes.
But it's the amazing Eve Rodsky. And Eve Rod is a New York Times bestselling author of Fair Play and the National Bestseller Find Your Unicorn Space and a recent documentary as well, Fair Play. Eve was born and raised by a single mom in New York City, now lives in Los Angeles with her husband, Seth, and her 3 children. And we just always love talking with Eve. And throughout this, we also talk about our Balance VIP coaching.
Yes, which it's perfect timing for this episode, everybody, because we are actually opening up our Balance program. And we talk a lot about Eve's work and balance, don't we?
Yeah, we make it a really core part of it, especially this idea of unicorn space, which you are going to find more about here in this episode. So let's get on with the show. You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self-sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. Welcome back, Eve, to the podcast.
Yay.
We're so excited to have you here.
I saw you yesterday.
It feels like yesterday. It has been a crazy, time is just flying. It just flies anymore.
Know, especially the end of the year. So
It is. And you've been so busy. I've been following all your socials, Eve. You have a huge campaign going on with is it Procter & Gamble?
Yes, that's been my dream actually. Literally, I think this started in 2011 when I had 2 very, very small sons, was thinking about how we don't replicate these patterns to this next generation. So our new campaign with Procter & Gamble is based on this idea that we've now really encouraged girls to code, but we've never encouraged boys to care. And even as gender becomes more fluid, there's still these incredible gender constructs where a super majority of the men I interviewed in 17 countries, Brie and Joanne, still told me that they were uncomfortable buying a doll. They would not proactively buy a doll for their son. So that's what we're doing. So Procter & Gamble is working to close the chore gap. And so it really felt synergistic. Like we don't work with brands typically unless it's a long-term partnership and they're actually committed to change in the area we are. So it's been very exciting.
That is so exciting. What you said, like we've never taught boys to care. And especially in the advertising realm and all the things they see on TV. I'm excited to see that because also you don't know how to do the things until you see the things. That's where you get the ideas that it's even possible. So to have this gender change in the home and to have these gender roles reversed, of course you have to see it and it has to be widespread. So that is so exciting. Not what we want to talk about today because I had to go off on it. I had to talk about that because I thought it was cool.
Thanks.
But today we want to talk about your concept of unicorn space because it is something that we share with our Balance VIP coaching community. We call it unicorn time in there. And it's an essential part of being a person. Can you explain a little bit about what unicorn space really is?
So I'm going to nerd out with you both since we're in like a 201.
Let's
we've been
nerd
together before. It was really interesting progression through Fair Play, which was sort of alarming, where women, especially who said to me, I want to play fair. I want my partner to take on more of the domestic workload, especially if they had kids in fourth grade or above. We're actually so that would be like a 10 years post having their first child. Were telling me that they wouldn't even know what to do with that time, that newfound time that they had.
Yeah.
That they would use it for work or they would use it to binge watch TV. And it was really alarming to me. So that's sort of how a book about creativity and burnout became a sequel to Fair Play, right? A lot of people thought the sequel would be, which we're doing now, a book in the business, right? Bringing Fair Play to the business world since women do non-promotable tasks at alarming rates there. But that's,
which is needed.
That's coming. But it really was unfinished business, this idea of what we call unicorn space. So why do we have to give it a new name, this idea of space for you? Again, because when women were telling me that they were going to fill that time, it was typically with commodified wellness. So it would be like dyeing their hair or a manicure, or it would be a spin class. It would be basic self-care, or it would be adult friendships, all important things. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't going to be the antidote to burnout. And so I think what I want to explain about this concept of unicorn space is really it's this idea that you need space for things that make you come alive, that make you say, I can't believe I just did that, in not a regretful way, but in a surprising way for yourself. And the reason why we need space for this is because I really wish, Joanne and Brie, I could tell you, and we've said this before, right, that a walk around the block would be the antidote to burnout. I wish I could tell you that an adult friendship would be the antidote to burnout. But really the only antidote to burnout, and again, we've alluded to this, is being consistently interested in your own life. The consistency of it was triggering for women because they could get their head around once a year girls trip, but they could not get their head around this idea of what does it mean to be consistently interested in my own life.
Because it's hard, I think, for moms to get their head around it. They feel like they are taking away from their family, first of all, because that's the message we've been fed, that kids come first, family comes first. And whatever time's left over, that's what we do. We stay up late. We wake up early in the morning to get it in.
Yeah. And we're also told, like the examples you gave, that just doing something for ourselves, like going to an exercise class or getting our nails done or watching our favorite, show is enough. That's enough. You don't need to do more than that. No. Stop there. That's good.
Like what you do here is a unicorn space. You have gone through the hurdles. You've decided you have a permission to be unavailable from just, your typical roles, which would have been parent and partner. And then you said to yourself, I'm going to do 3 really difficult things, which is what a unicorn space really is. A unicorn space, and you'll know you're in it, it has 3 elements to it. It has curiosity, like real curiosity, values-based curiosity. And I talk about that in the book a lot. That is not, I'm curious why my child's poop is yellow, as one woman said to me, but real values-based curiosity. So you had that. I wonder what it would be like for Bree and me to get together and bring this message that we're doing in our coaching to the masses. Then you had to connect with each other and to podcast guests, which is always scary to ask people if they want to come on. And then also the hardest part of connection is the completion, right? You had to actually, even if you don't like the episode, you have to still edit it and upload it, right? And then you don't know what the world's going to do with it. Those 3 pieces of curiosity, connection, and completion make this space for you two a unicorn space. And I think it's really important to recognize that it has to have a component of sharing with the world, which is why this is a long answer to say the spin class, the nails are not a unicorn space. They are self-care, but it doesn't have this component of mental health, longevity. The things that I'm looking for women are the things that will help us, again, combat that burnout. And part of it is the share with the world component.
The share with the world component, that is so interesting because it goes beyond what I've been thinking of unicorn space as, because I've been looking at it, I guess, more as a hobby, but it's like one other thing you said is it needs to be something that makes you excited in your own life and makes you feel alive. And I'm like trying to look back and I'm like, what have I done that makes me feel excited and feel alive? I mean, one of it was we went to Italy and traveled, the girls trip.
Love it. And that travel is definitely a unicorn space for sure.
It's unicorn space. And then I think the other thing, like it was just last week made me feel alive, just putting myself out there and pitching myself for this huge presentation and getting accepted and like sharing with the world. I was like running around like crazy.
And there's some fear there, right? Because you're going to have to present. You're going to have to share yourself with the world. So that's the thing. A unicorn space has that little bit of, I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I just did that.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.
Hey, are you a parent of a teenager? Are you feeling overwhelmed about how to be what they need while also holding limits and boundaries that keep them safe? Are you tired of conversations that negate how messy this season of parenting is? Well, I've got you. My name is Casey O'Rourke. I am a positive discipline trainer, parent coach, and the host of the Joyful Courage podcast. Every week, I come to you with an interview digging into tough topics with experts I trust and solo shows that go deep into the personal growth and mindset needed to raise teens in a way that grows them into confident, capable young people. I am not afraid of getting real about the intersection of conscious parenting and the teen years, while also bringing in vulnerability, humor, and lightness. I'm walking the path with you and honored to serve. Listen to Joyful Courage on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts.
No one told us the truth about parenthood. Why? This is the podcast everyone needed before they had kids, because now that those little ones are here, there is a lot to unpack. I'm Rachel Shepardota, and I am your host for the podcast No One Told Us, where we tell the truth about parenting and let you in on all the stuff you really should have known about before having kids. I am the founder of Hey Sleepy Baby, but this podcast is so much more than sleep. We'll be diving into all the topics that you really care about and need to know, while you do your best job raising those adorable, tiny humans. Our goal is to just make you feel less alone and less overwhelmed. There are so many things that no one tells us before becoming a parent, and I think that we should really pull back the curtain on becoming a first-time or second-time mom or dad to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll have a little education, a little fun, and a whole lot of heart that goes into each and every episode. So join me and our amazing guests each week to hear us talk about what no one told us.
So that's the thing. A unicorn space has that little bit of, I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I just did that. That's the nature of it that makes it so special. Again, I'll just nerd out for one more second about the science.
We love nerding.
So this is the science. I think what happened over the past 10 years is we become too focused on happiness. And I started to uncover this as I was researching. And what I realized about the past 10 years of all this positive psychology and happiness was that even the happiness researchers were telling me that people were misunderstanding their message. Mm-hmm. And I think even when we say to our kids, it's the wrong message. Like I remember before I knew this research, I would say to my kids, I just want you to be happy. I just want you to be happy. You know, whatever you do, I just want happiness for you. And the truth is that that's actually a really fucked up message, because anybody who's happy, like, I don't know, during what we just went through the past 3 years is probably like a sociopath who doesn't care about the world, right? So
it is, yeah.
Right? So I think what I had to do was really replace it and go to the mental health experts that I loved. And once they said to me that the true definition of mental health is not being happy all the time, the true definition of mental health is having the appropriate emotion at the appropriate time and the ability and strength to weather it. As my son Ben says to me all the time, I know, Mom, you don't want me to be happy. You want me to have the appropriate emotion at the appropriate time and the ability and strength to weather it.
Wait,
the
and
ability
how
and strength, he's 11. He's 11.
That's good.
Yes.
Simple little spent there.
He definitely knows now, because he hears me say it, that unicorn space is your ability and strength to weather it. It's the umbrella. I'm not going to stop the rain for anybody. You're not going to stop the rain for anybody, but your podcast together is a unicorn space. Your presentation is a unicorn space, because what it does for you, Joanne, it gives you an umbrella. And then that umbrella feeling stays with you during the mundane and overwhelm, which is most of our lives, to be honest. And it's a better way to combat it, that umbrella, as opposed to what we've been taught to do, as Bree said earlier, which is binge watch these private pursuits, binge watch TV, mommy juice, right? This idea that we have to medicate ourselves through parenting. You know, some of the women I interviewed, or edibles starting at 12 every weekend. So instead of this unicorn space, we've been told and conditioned to numb ourselves through these years. And that's actually a better place for women to be. If we're sort of numb zombies, then we can't like topple the patriarchy, right? We can't ask for positions of power. So I actually think this is more systemic than we actually think.
And we need to topple the patriarchy.
I was going to say, and here I thought we were just just being told to give our support to our family and our, most likely our husbands and whatnot, but thinking that it's even bigger than that, a bigger thought process of keeping us in our box so that we don't try to get out of it.
So where do women go from here if they have no idea what their unicorn space is?
Right.
What can they do?
Well, I think before we can get even into understanding, curiosity, connection, completion, I think we have to address the three things that women told me were the hardest hurdles to even thinking about one of those three C's or all of them. And the three biggest hurdles, again, this comes now, I started this research in 2011. So this would be, 12, almost over a decade of research. What I heard from women was that the number one issue was that they did not believe that they had a permission to be unavailable from their work. That was number one.
Oh, yeah.
That availability was actually part of their identity. And we would do an exercise where I would have them hold their phone and picture the school calling if they had children and not picking up. And these women were telling me they were getting a stress response just from like the imaginary exercise, right? Their heart was pounding. They started to feel a little bit nauseous. So we know that availability has really been conditioned into our identity. And we talked a lot about this, I think, in episode 1. So if people want sort of a refresher about why that is, I would say go back to our first time together, because we really talk about how women's time is not, we've been conditioned to believe our time is not valuable.
Yeah.
But the other thing that happens is, even if you and I can convince you today, or we can together convince people that they deserve unavailability from their roles as parents, partners, professionals, whatever those roles are, then what was happening next number two was that women were telling me that guilt and shame was ruining their unicorn space experiences. So I'll give you an example. There was a single mother who I was following, and she really was very interested in this idea of unicorn space, all the way from Fair Play, to be honest, because she got very triggered by, there's a story I tell about this woman who said she lost her permission to be interesting. Mm-hmm. And so this single mom, she told me that on DM, this was through Instagram or LinkedIn or somewhere, but she told me that her rent stabilized apartment building on the Upper West Side has a music room. And because she shares it with Juilliard students, and she actually used to play piano. So she said she got really curious and excited about like what new musicals she could play, and, you know, bought Hamilton sheet music or whatever it was, Red's sheet music. And she booked time, which takes active step forward to book time to be in this music room. But she said when she got there, she could see that the sun was setting, and her child doesn't like to be in daycare when it's dark out. And so she just closed the piano, took her sheet music, and left to go pick up her son. So what I found was that guilt and shame are very interesting emotions, because other emotions women tell me they're willing to sit with, like their rage or their resentment, and they'll keep it inside for a really long time. But guilt and shame were emotions that people acted on immediately, which I thought was so interesting. Like you actually change your behavior in the moment based on that guilt and shame. So that's important to understand, that even if you can believe you have permission to be unavailable, guilt and shame can possibly ruin your unicorn space unless you're willing to interrupt guilt and shame and say it's not going to affect my decision making in the moment.
Yeah.
And then finally, the third hurdle was asking for what you need, which is always a hurdle, I think, or at least it always has been a hurdle for me.
It's been a hurdle for me too. And it's so interesting that guilt and shame are those emotions that you act on immediately. Because like through reading your work, and I mean, I've been working on this now since I read your book 4 years ago, but kids come and ask mom first. Like you say, like the she-fault parent. Kids come and ask mom for everything first. And something that I have put into my vocabulary now is if I know my husband is home and my kids come to me, I'm like, so what did dad say about this? And they'll look at me with a blank face. They'll be like, I didn't ask him. I'll be like, you go check with him. You go check with him right now.
Love it.
And the first time was hard. It was really hard because I'm like, oh my gosh, am I inconveniencing my husband? I'm not doing this for my kids. How dare I do this? But I do have to say, doing it over and over again, I'm realizing the unfairness of it all, that everything was on me. And now I'm enjoying asking that question. What does dad have to say? Because it needs to be shared, that responsibility in households.
Absolutely. And I think the real hard part for me, and what's actually been really exciting since I last saw you, was what was interesting to me about the Fair Play journey was that when I went to lawmakers, and we've been out now, we have a Fair Play documentary on Hulu. We've sort of been out on the Fair Play journey for a long time. I've been out there a long time. And when I framed the issue of women's time as a workplace issue, as an issue where, you know, we're going to lose 30 to 40 years of women's labor force participation, which we did frame it as even before the pandemic, society didn't feel urgency to me. I didn't feel people picking up their pen, especially when I met with lawmakers. They weren't sort of picking up their pen. But when it was actually framed as a unicorn space issue, what I mean by that is that it affects people's mental and physical health if they don't get to value their own time or have time choice over how they use their time. Then all of a sudden people started to pick up their pen, because the women who told me that they had no extra time, that they were just parents, partners, and professionals in 2011, I had 200 in my cohort. I'm picking up the Fair Play cards. It was a spreadsheet back then, as you know, the Should I Do spreadsheet. So it wasn't cards, it was tabs, but same, cards, tabs. So I would ask them, how many tabs are you holding? And in the spreadsheet, if women told me that they could identify that they were the main lead parent or the lead person on 67 out of 100 tabs. So typically, if you hold 67 cards, it means you have children. If they were holding 67 of those tabs and they also worked full-time for pay, so those were 200 women I had in 2011. Mm-hmm. I've been able to follow those 200 women. Thank God we have actually kept tabs on all those women. And what we found 10 years later, or more than 10 years later, is that every single one of those women is being treated for stress-related illness or self-medicating.
That's crazy.
So that's what I don't want for you. That's why there's urgency. Create a creative life, a unicorn space life is really not optional, because otherwise these were the top 5. We had insomnia was number 1, overactive thyroid was number 2, hair loss was number 3, SSRI use was number 4, and actually cancer diagnoses was number 5, which was really shocking to me.
That is crazy that all of these health-related illnesses come from just not valuing or prioritizing creativity. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Lynn, this time of year, parenting can be such a flusterclux.
You've come to the right place. I'm Lynn Lyons, and I've been treating anxious families for over 30 years.
I'm Lynn's sister-in-law and co-host Robin Hudson.
Join us for Flusterclux, a podcast for parents who worry.
Wait, that's everybody.
Yeah, these last few years have felt like one long anxiety attack for so many.
Why do you think parents are always surprised that a podcast about anxiety relates to them, even if no one in their house has an anxiety disorder?
Well, worry is human. Everyone does it. And anxiety shows up when we face uncertainty.
All the parenting tips you've taught me have been essential.
I love to break it down into skills we need to manage worry in our families.
We've covered so many topics: depression, burnout, meltdowns, perfectionism.
Don't forget scary mothers-in-law.
Right, but of course that's not my mother-in-law.
Because that's my mother.
And a listener.
As a psychotherapist, I like to teach parents and kids how to respond to everyday moments in healthy ways.
Managing anxiety really can be taught.
It really can. And I'll even tell you what to say.
We talk about serious stuff, but without being too serious.
Anxiety wants everything serious. Anxiety doesn't stand a chance when we're laughing, even about the tough stuff.
Hey friends, if you're facing divorce, thinking about it, or navigating the chaos it can bring, I've got something just for you. I'm Kate Anthony, and I host the New York Times recommended The Divorce Survival Guide podcast, your one-stop resource for surviving and thriving through divorce. Each week, we dive into everything from emotional healing and co-parenting to legal strategies and starting over. You'll hear from top experts, powerful guest stories, and maybe a little tough love along the way. Because divorce, it's hard, but you don't have to do it alone. This isn't just about getting through it. It's about rebuilding and reclaiming your life on the other side. Whether you're in the middle of a messy split or planning your next chapter, I've got your back. So hit that follow button and join me on the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, because survival isn't the end, it's just the beginning.
When it comes to raising kids, there's so much to consider. Things like, what do we feed them? When do we feed them? How do they sleep? What does it look like to raise kind kids? How does their nervous system work? How do I keep myself calm? What are my triggers? There's so much that comes into play, and we are distilling all of that information for you at Voices of Your Village podcast, where we bring experts in the field of early childhood and education and psychology and across the board so that you don't have to comb the internet for information. You get to show up and hang out and have shame-free, judgment-free conversations and insights into what it looks like to raise kind, empathetic, emotionally intelligent humans. I'm Alyssa Blask Campbell. I have a master's degree in early childhood education. I'm a mom of 2, and I am walking this journey right alongside you doing this work. Come hang out with me at Voices of Your Village, and we can dive into real conversations with actionable tips.
All of these health-related illnesses come from just not valuing or prioritizing creativity. So once people have started and recognized that shame and guilt is keeping them held back, and they know they need this, but they've been caring for their kids for so long that they have no idea where they're even going to start with this. What can they do?
Well, my favorite thing to do is to really think about where you're lacking. So a great place to start is, as we go back to those 3 C's, curiosity, connection, and completion. It's actually to start where you feel the most disconnected from. So I'll explain what I mean. So if you feel like I literally have no idea what I would be curious about, then you start there. If you think to yourself, I'm really lonely, I've been really isolated in this journey. And by the way, for any of your listeners, kudos to them, because part of breaking isolation is listening to podcasts and other women to say, like, you're not alone. So thank you for creating this community for people. I said it's a unicorn space for sure. And so that would be loneliness and isolation. That would be connection. And then completion would be another place. And so one woman said to me, and I wrote about this in the book, so it was funny, that she feels curious all the time and she feels connected, but she's a graveyard of unfulfilled dreams. Mm. And what she meant by that was every time her GoDaddy accounts would come up and she would see, like, do you want to renew this domain name? She'd be like, oh my God, like, I forgot about that idea. So she was like awash an idea. But for her, it was this idea, like, I don't even know how to complete all of these ideas that I'm thinking about. So I would say start with whatever is the issue, because that's really helpful to really start journaling and thinking about, like, what am I lacking right now? Am I really lacking that wonder, that lifelong learning journey? Am I lacking, connection with others, or am I lacking this ability to complete something that I'm really, thinking about?
That is a great place to start, because I think that, different people I talk to would say something different. Like, it's not a one size fits all answer. And I'm thinking of my own mom here and where I can encourage her to find some unicorn space, which I think she's already found in gardening. But
gardening, yes.
She loves
it. But you have to have a share with the world component. So that's the thing. These solo pursuits don't really have the mental and physical benefits that I'm looking for people, which is I want her to up level her gardening. Why doesn't she, as one woman did and I wrote about her too, I think it was called the ugly vegetable contest. She entered like some weird zucchini into an ugly vegetable contest. I didn't even know there were things like that. But maybe your mother can grow an ugly vegetable. And give her bounty in her garden to a local school or to friends in the neighborhood in a cute basket. Like that's the sharing component that we just want to up level her one level.
Yeah. And that would take care of the connection with the world, because something I've seen repeated again and again in media. I just listened to a podcast episode about this yesterday about men. The loneliness factor is how we are just so isolated in society. And I mean, a unicorn space that you share with the world that clicks off the, hey, here's how I'm going to connect with others and get
and that's message. How I met my neighbor. We recently moved actually, and in our old neighborhood, we didn't know any of our neighbors, but in this neighborhood, one of our neighbors is a beekeeper. And so she makes her own honey, which I think is so interesting. And so she brought us for Rosh Hashanah, like a Happy New Year honey, because it's a Jewish custom to dip challah, our bread, into honey, or apples into honey for a sweet New Year. So I met her because it was, and I will love her forever. I will love her forever because what a nice gesture. And it was really the best honey, ever, because it was fresh. It was from her garden. I got to learn about what it means to keep bees. Just really interesting.
That's cool, because I want to give stuff to my neighbors. I'm like, I should do that. I should be more open, and I can never get my head around it. But thinking about it in terms of just sharing a unicorn space, my neighbors across the street are Mormon, so I can't bring them a margarita. But I have to figure out something else to bring them.
Another neighbor. Well, what you could do, I have so many fun ideas lately for unicorn space. I'm really interested in mixology. The thing about unicorn space is that once you unleash it, your creativity in one area, right? So for me, it was really starting to write books again. Then it was starting to dance during the pandemic, and then now I want to write a murder mystery.
I'd read it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You'll be my test reader.
I'm a thriller reader. I read all of them.
Oh my gosh, good. So am I. And I'm starting to get annoyed that every single thriller has any protagonist in the thriller's parents have died in a car crash with their kids. And I'm like, why does that have to be always the plot line?
I have some to recommend to you, Eve, when we get off. Oh my gosh.
Please.
There's one I just finished.
Good. Tell me. I always am looking for another thriller, but basically, it's just I think the fear diminishes as you start doing more and more things, because you just don't give a shit anymore. Mm-hmm. I think if you're out of a unicorn space routine or practice, when you do anything, you feel like the whole world's going to look at you or laugh at you for whatever you're doing. But once you get into the rhythm of it, then it really is easier to complete things, because you realize it doesn't have to be perfection. I think that's the good thing about starting, is that so many people say they don't want to start because if they did a podcast, what if it wasn't, a top 10 podcast on Apple? They're so used to being excellent that a unicorn space gets sort of dropped into the excellence bucket. Mm-hmm. And I just want people to feel like they can be themselves. They can try, and it does not have to be perfection.
I love that message, and I think it's so important. And Eve, thank you so much for joining us here again and sharing all of this great stuff about unicorn space. And I hope that if you're listening right now, you are thinking what your unicorn space can be and what you can try.
I want to end on one tip, which I think was fun recently. So I love moleskins, and I have, different colors for everyone. So I would ask your listeners, go get a moleskin, start a guilt and shame journal. It's really fun to do. So when you feel guilty about something, you just write it down in your journal. And so for me, it would be like, I feel guilty because I'm not putting Anna to bed tonight. Then what you do is you cross out, I feel guilty because we talked a little bit about this, and you put in, I made the decision because instead. Now, the fun part about the guilt and shame journal is that you feel really that acute guilt in the moment, right? I feel guilty because I'm not putting Anna to bed tonight. I'm making the decision not to put Anna to bed tonight so I can be with Joanne and Bree. When you look back a year later and you see like you felt guilty for going to coffee with a friend because you didn't like take your child on a walk, you look at it and you're like, what is literally wrong with me? So I think it's actually guilt and shame in retrospect is really fun to look at, because you realize it's really a very bizarre emotion, because it's not the things we feel guilty about are really not things we should be feeling guilty about at all.
Yeah. I love it. I love a guilt and shame journal, because I would probably have the same reaction. Like, what is wrong with me?
Hey, then you know you're not alone, because all of us have those crazy, like,
yes, you're not alone.
Why? Like, sometimes I'll verbalize my guilt or my shame to my husband, and he'll just, what? No,
right.
no.
Same.
Most of my guilt and shame is revolving around him. I feel so bad that I feel shameful that I asked you to help with dinner. And he'll be like, are you serious?
Right.
No.
And exactly, it unpacks, and you'll start seeing some of that gendered stuff in your journal too, which makes you realize, oh, wow, like, where did this come from? What message was this? Did I hear this from? So it's a fun exercise. And, if anybody does it, of course, they can always reach out to me on Fair Play Life on Instagram and tell us how it went.
Yeah, definitely. We'll put all those links in the show notes. So thank you so much, Eve, for joining us.
Big hugs. I'm getting on the road now. Joanne, will you email me some thriller recommendations?
Yes, I will. Most definitely. I have a lot of them. I have a lot of them. I'll email them.
Perfect.
Okay, so all throughout the episode, Bree, I didn't want to ask you when we were on with Eve, because I didn't want to put you on the spot. What is your unicorn space?
Okay,
what do you share with the world?
No, that's a really great question, because I was wondering the exact same thing. I was going to say, but then like the moment came and passed. So I was like, oh, I can't. It's like one of those things where you think of it later and you're like, if I say it now, it's going to be, hey guys, remember 5 minutes later when we were talking about this?
I do that all the time in podcast episodes, by the way. I'm like, something interesting you said right there. I want to go back to that.
Yeah, but that works. It works typically when you say that, because you say it right after. Like, I think that, like, you guys talked about unicorn time and then it moves on to a different topic, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't know, because normally I would have said that it's, and you know this, I would have said that it's like going kayaking, paddleboarding, or going to see live music. Like, those are what I always would consider my what we call unicorn time and balance, because they're things that fulfill me, bring me joy, that I can do and I can share with my family and friends or not. And that I feel like it does make me interesting. There are things that I look forward to in my life, but I don't know if I have a component of sharing it with the world.
Well, I mean, she mentioned many times about how the podcast is our unicorn space. We do share that with the world.
So maybe that's it. And maybe it's also a call that I need to actually finally start putting more stuff on my Instagram, because I post like, once a month on my Instagram at best.
Oh, sometimes Instagram though, like social media. Like, I always go for the social media things, because I'm like, a lot of business advice goes by the thing that, you don't build your business on somebody else's platform. And that's like what social media is. It's putting your stuff and your work out there on something somebody else owns. So it could be ripped away from you at any moment, is basically the theory behind it. Like when they change algorithms, or if they decide to put you in Facebook jail and take away all your privileges.
Stupid Facebook jail.
Or hackers come in and erase your profile, or like
idiots. Oh my gosh.
Idiots. Okay. No, it's so much. It's so much.
I have a lot of anger towards those things.
There is.
So would that be though? I guess, like, do you think that would be considered a unicorn space? And what do you? And what do you feel like your unicorn space is currently? Do you feel like it is the podcast? I don't know.
I feel like I've made a whole career out of my unicorn space.
Well, that's a fair statement.
I did the writing, I did the everything. And so I feel very fulfilled in my line of work that I get to also experience a unicorn space.
As somebody who has known you for many, many years, I would say I see your new unicorn space journeys pop up about every 12 to 16 months. I see a new unicorn. Yeah. Yeah.
What is it now?
Well, the in-person event.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's
been something I've been trying for 5 years.
You have been trying and you're finally getting it to completion.
5 years.
And then you're going to find a new passion that you're going to get excited about.
And I don't have to be cagey about it. If you guys have seen social media, it is Mom 2.0, this conference, the parenting conference that I've been going to for the past 5 years. I have also pitched them for the past 5 years. I'll be like, please. And I hadn't heard anything. And yet Bree's the one who convinced me to pitch again. And I'm like, fine, Bree, I'll pitch again. And I did, and they accepted me. So I was very, very excited.
So, I mean, again, having sat back from a distance, started with the blog back when it used to be Whimsical. So people, if you don't know that, you can dig. Joanne started as Whimsical and then became No Guilt Mom. And then it became a book. And then the first book happened. And then it became, Balance. And then another book came as a thing, and then like a parenting course, and like, so I forgot the podcast in there. Podcast came in before Balance. So anyways, point being is I have seen all of these passion projects of yours come that light you up. You get so giddy and excited about them, and you share them with the world, and they're like you have so many little babies, so many little unicorn babies.
There are a lot of little unicorn babies. It's the way to like being fascinated by your own life and what you can do. But I mean, sometimes you have to be pushed. I mean, you pushed me into we're doing a No Guilt Mom VIP retreat. And it's something that I've wanted to do forever, but have been so scared. And Bree sat me down. She's like, okay, so we're going to do this year, right?
Okay. And let me be clear. Like, if there's one thing Bree doesn't like, it's moving her cheese. I don't like changing things a whole lot. I have my parameters on how much change I can handle, but this is something that, kept coming up every year, and every year you wanted to do it. So yeah, I'm excited that we sat down and we got it scheduled. And since we do record this early, I'm not sure if there's still tickets, but if there are, you really need to go check it out, people, because it's going to be phenomenal. Because again, phenomenal. When Joanne gets passionate about something, it is no holds barred.
I drag everybody along with me for the ride.
Yeah, but you also don't half-ass it. It's very 110%. So, or 150, I don't know, however many percentage it can be. So.
It's the only way I know to be.
See?
So it looks like we need to find you some unicorn space. Where can I push you?
Cheese. It's in a good spot right now. I don't know. I'll have to think about that some more. Maybe that'll be something that I will think about and work at the retreat.
See, Eve started with like my mom and gardening. Like you and music and you and kayaking, but I don't think you would be competitive in kayaking. Like you don't want that.
I don't have that competitive bone in me. No, I do not. I have with me, there are things I want to do. I have a bucket list of kayaking places I want to go. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's expanding it bigger, which would include me having to learn more kayaking skills and all of that. Like I only know how to do certain things. I need to learn how to do a roll. If I want to do some of the kayaking that I want to do, I need to learn how to roll so I don't die. I don't drown.
That's a good thing to know. Don't die.
It's a good thing to know. Yeah. Right now, Bree's doing like slow rivers and lakes. I want to go on things faster, but I will have to learn how to get up from underwater if I do that. So.
How do you learn that?
You can actually go places. They have like they can teach you like in a pool setting. I don't even know where to go. Like I know I've seen videos of how you can be taught that, and I need to look into that because some of the items on my bucket list will never go anywhere if I don't learn.
You got to do like kayaking trip or like a kayaking adventure.
Oh, there are I was supposed to go on a huge kayaking trip with a bunch of people, and then lovely COVID hit, and it just hasn't really resurfaced since. So I think, and we talk about that too in the episode about how one of the components of Unicorn Space is that connection. I think some people are missing that connection because like it just COVID has impacted so much of us. Like it's really hard to get back to where we were socially before, I think, especially if you're talking about big group things.
Yeah, it is. I think it requires some push. I like the connection part. It's a good reminder that that's something to push
I think
towards.
we have to work. Yeah, I think we have to work extra hard on that connection component right now. Yeah. Because it's not as easy to fulfill as it was before. Because like, you know, before COVID, I was in like 4 or 5 different social groups, 3 different kayaking groups. And out of all that, like only 2 kayaking groups are still there, but they don't do anything together anymore. And the social groups don't do anything either anymore. So it's like
time to start a kayaking group.
Oh gosh, don't tell me that. You know me, I don't like being in charge of people. Like in terms of like
you
in a group
love being in charge of people.
No, not in like a social group setting, because I do not want to be your mom. Do not make me like no, I don't like. The last time I was in charge of a group on social media, the principal like went crazy on me, and it wasn't even me. Just because I was the one who created the group, I got in trouble. So yeah, that definitely scarred me, man.
Oh, I see those, and I'm like, she was wrong. She was totally wrong.
Oh yeah, totally wrong, but still happened, and it's enough to make me be like, okay, Bree is done. I am no longer like putting together social groups. I will join them. I will help take the lead at things that are happening, but I am no longer in charge of a group of feral people online. It ain't happening. They were all feral.
It's a good description of those school groups.
Yes.
That's how it is. Well, we hope you enjoyed our conversation with Eve and that you're going to find your unicorn space. And we're looking for our next unicorn spaces as we speak. So until next time, remember, the best mom's a happy mom. Take care of you. We'll see you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
Are you overwhelmed by the things that get in the way of you doing what you want to do? Are you looking for ways to simplify life to better align with your values? Do you want to create space in your schedule so you have room for more of the good stuff? Play, joy, relationships, gratitude, and more? If you answered yes to any of these questions, I invite you to check out Edit Your Life, a podcast to help you edit the unnecessary from your life so you have more room to enjoy the awesome. Through episodes with me, Christine Coe, and a range of super smart, compassionate, and thoughtful guests, you'll come away with big picture insights and practical ways to declutter your home, schedule, and mental space without getting bogged down by perfection. I have always believed that small moments and actions matter tremendously. My goal is to help you find agency and space in your life through doable baby steps that will leave you feeling accomplished instead of overwhelmed. Check out Edit Your Life wherever you enjoy your podcasts.